Okay, some bombshell news, some great news, frankly, out of Bessemer, Alabama. You guys will recall we covered this here extensively. The Amazon warehouse down in Bessemer, there was an effort to unionize that warehouse. Ultimately, when the vote came down, it was a dramatic loss for the union. However, we talked to the president of the union that was trying to organize them, and we talked to, other reporters who were down there on the scene, and they said there was a lot of funny business going on here. And in particular, the thing that they consistently pointed to was that Amazon had a post office box installed on their property that they effectively had control over, or at least gave the employees the feeling that Amazon was sort of controlling this election process. Now, the National Labor Relations Board, the regional directors in that area had laid out very specifically all of the parameters of the election, when it's going to happen, how long the mail-in vote's going to occur, and Amazon asked to have this drop box put on the property, and they said specifically no. And Amazon goes ahead and does it
anyway.
There were also other problems in terms of one of the things they're pointing to is that workers were effectively polled for union support, which again is illegal, by being told that if they don't support the union, they need to pick up anti-union sort of propaganda or like merchandise. And so that gave them a very clear sense of which workers were pro-union and which workers were anti-union. Again, this is illegal. You can't poll the workers in advance because this is putting, undue pressure on them in a very public way. So the bottom line of all of this is that the regional NLRB agreed with the union and the union organizers that this election was improper and that Amazon had illegally violated workers' rights in the way that they went about this, both with regards to the mailbox and with regards to this method that they use to poll publicly their employees. And so they have issued an order granting Bessemer Amazon workers a new election. Stuart Applebaum, who's the president of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union, let's go ahead and throw the tear sheet up on the screen, said that the decision substantiates their claims that the first vote on unionizing the Amazon warehouse was tainted by what the union called illegal misconduct that interfered with the election. Quote, today's decision confirms what we were saying all along, that Amazon's intimidation and interference prevented workers from having a fair say and whether they wanted a union in their workplace. And as the regional director has indicated, that is both unacceptable and illegal. So the process going forward, the date for the new election has not been set. Amazon has until I think December 13th to appeal this to now the National Labor Relations Board, which of course the members of which have been set by the Biden administration. So they're much more pro-union than, Trump had stacked it with a bunch of anti-union lawyers and it had a very anti-worker stance. So they have a good shot at prevailing even at the national level. In the meantime, they haven't set the date and the election may actually go on before that appeal has been fully, that process has fully occurred. If you read between the lines, and there's a new Washington Post article out about this morning as well, it seems like because the regional NLRB specifically set these terms and Amazon asked for this Dropbox and they said no and then they did it anyway, I think they pissed these people off. Where they're like, no, I told you can't do this and then you went and did it anyway. And so, this is a great win for the union and obviously the odds are still a long shot, but I'd also say the environment's a lot different now than it was at the time.
That's right. It is very different, and it's very important to understand that. That being said, the deck was stacked against them from the first place. I also, and look, Stuart, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but you pointed out this excellent article at the time. I forget who wrote it, specifically about the failures of union drives, and it was pointing to Amazon, but also in the modern era. And what they point to is that a lot of the organizers themselves were young activists who were speaking social justice speak to a lot of these people, emphasizing Black Lives Matter to a bunch of Amazon employees when, we have seen time and time again on our show, the Jacobin poll and more, what are the things that actual working class people, even working class Black people, want to hear whenever it comes to both unions and to politics. They want to hear about how it's going to impact their wage, their life, and all of that. And instead, they were having social justice speak kind of being pushed towards them as the opening message, which turned a lot of these people off in the ultimate election. How much did the Amazon Dropbox change? I literally have no idea. And it's not just about that. I mean, we've covered this on our show. They changed the traffic light outside of the area, the warehouse, so that I think it was they sped up the red light or something like that, so that people could not come and congregate and organize in that drive. Amazon made them sit through all of these informational sessions. They basically went right up to the line, if not over the line.
Clearly,
in terms
they
of
went over the
legality,
line.
right? Yeah, at the very least, they have at least been recognized of going over the line. I am not minimizing that. I want these people to have the best and to have better lives and all of that. But it's also on the union and them to actually try and message this thing properly if they're going to try again. And the national environment would be very conducive to this.
Yes.
I really believe this. The Great Resignation is already happening. Yes, Amazon has thrown, I think it was 17, 18, whatever dollars, minimum wage. They talk about healthcare, all of this. But people, and Amazon specifically, has already admitted that they are having trouble hiring people in the middle of a labor shortage. There has never been more bargaining power for these people than right now. So right now would be the time to do it. I do think it's on the union to try again and to actually message it effectively this time. I'm trying to remember, I think it was in The Nation, that piece that you referenced at the time. I found it very eye-opening to me personally. I'm like, oh, this is also why it failed. It's not just Amazon. Exactly. This is about talking to people about what they really care about. And like you said, look, you don't have to not care or whatever about Black Lives Matter or social justice, but whenever you're trying to talk to somebody and convince them to do something in this way, you have to lead with a lot more of what's it actually going to do for your life. Yeah. What are your actual concerns about what's happening here on the job?
100%. And look, I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know how the messaging was done, to what extent, I don't know how reflective that article was or not. I think the biggest issue is simply the way that the deck is stacked against workers in all of these places. That's obviously the overarching problem why we have such low unionization rates in the country. But if ever there was a time, it is now. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, because very likely the election goes the way the last one did, and it wasn't close. It was like 2/3 to 1/3. It was roughly something like that, 2-to-1 effectively in the end count. So, very difficult odds. Very much the odds are stacked against them, and they have a big hill to climb here. But what we've been tracking is how much there is a different feel in the air now with workers, whether they're walking out of their fast food jobs en masse, whether they are authorizing strikes in a strike wave that we've seen across the country, whether they're the Starbucks workers who in a couple different locations now have filed and are trying to unionize. There is a lot of momentum at this moment behind workers who are trying to claim a little bit more power and a little bit more in terms of scheduling, in terms of benefits, in terms of wages, and all of those things. So Amazon will do everything that they possibly can to make sure that the result turns out the same way again. In the past, they've fired workers, as we covered yesterday.
Yes.
Fired a young homeless man who was working at their warehouse in Staten Island because, seemingly, he became an outspoken advocate for the union, and that was unacceptable to them, so they fired him. Christian Smalls, of course, fired, and there are other instances across the country where they have been caught retaliating against workers who have wanted to organize. So I don't think anyone should delude themselves about the tactics they are able and willing to use in this instance, and just how difficult it is to certify a union, to join a union. But they are getting another shot at it. It's something we're going to watch very closely, and it will be a really interesting. I mean, this is almost like an in-a-lab test case of the difference between when this was happening at the beginning of last year versus now, and whether there really is a different environment for workers and their power and their ability to assert themselves in the workplace.
I think things have changed a lot. I think things this could be a big one. in my opinion.
We'll see. I'm not ready to get my hopes up yet, but we will watch it closely. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.